Hello, welcome to the Sound of Science, the place where we deconstruct unscientific bogus and silly scams. Let's go get them. Hello there and thanks for watching. Today we will discuss a video of the Christian apologist Trent Horn in order to show you how misleading the so-called fine-tuning argument for God is, and how Trent misleads his audience into thinking that atheists consider the fine-tuning argument to be proof for the existence of a God. The fine-tuning concept is misleading and failing on many levels. So I don't know why Trent Horn pretends that the argument is a big deal. For the remainder of this video, I will address Trent directly, so I will be talking to him, as it were.
Of all the different arguments for the existence of God, only one gets mentioned again and again by modern atheists as being a powerful proof for God's existence. And I won't leave you in suspense any longer. That argument is the fine-tuning argument for God's existence.
Trent, you've not even started to address the argument itself, and you are already misleading your audience. No, this is certainly not an argument that is feared by atheists, as you wrongly claim in the title of your video. I would even suggest that there is no and there will never be any argument that atheists fear. Just show your evidence, and if it proves that your God exists, we will stop being atheists. It's as simple as that. But as you know, theists have never been able to produce such evidence. And no, none of these atheists that you display in your video has ever said that the fine-tuning concept is a powerful proof for God's existence, or any proof whatsoever, which is clearly demonstrated by all the clips you yourself show in your own video. None of the atheists you showcase uses the word proof. They all call fine-tuning an argument, and that is something entirely different, and you know that. On top of that, Trent, famous atheists saying stuff during interviews or even in a very informal setting like the clip you showed of Christopher Hitchens in the backseat of a car proves nothing about the argument itself. If you want to claim that the fine-tuning concept is proof for the existence of your God, then show us a study in a peer-reviewed scientific journal that deals with the argument and comes to the conclusion that we now have proven that your God exists. We both know such a study, of course, does not exist. If you really think that the argument is so powerful, then write your own article and offer it to a peer-reviewed scientific journal. I don't believe that that is going to happen, so I will settle for commenting on your video. Let's move on.
That argument is the fine-tuning argument for God's existence. And it goes like this. According to the fine-tuning argument, the odds the universe's laws of physics would be life permitting are almost zero.
Okay, Trent, your video takes about 17 minutes, but here you only need 5 seconds in the very beginning of your video to expose one of the major flaws of the fine-tuning concept, which is you have no clue about those odds. You say the odds of life-permitting laws of nature are almost zero, but you have no way to assess that. Trent, the odds could be 10%, 50%, 100%, who knows? You simply have no clue. So you should stop saying that the odds are almost zero. Because we don't know if the physical constants of the universe could have had any other values than we know them to have. The fact that the physical constants of the universe have certain values does not mean that they could have had other values. And the fine-tuning concept is fully based upon its proponents, like yourself, imagining that such a thing is possible. So that is the first hurdle of this argument, and it's a big one. If you want to explain the concept of fine-tuning to an audience, you first have to ask them to imagine that the physical constants of the universe are not constants but variables that can be adjusted in some way, and you have no evidence that proves such a thing is possible. But okay, Trent, for the sake of the argument, because it's a bit pitiful if your argument already fails after 5 seconds, let's play make-believe and pretend that physical constants are somehow variables that can be adjusted. Why not? Let's have some fun. If we do that, we immediately run into the next problem. Because if this argument eventually will somehow point to the existence of some sort of God, then you now must also believe that this God is the one who adjusted these physical constants. Why did he have to do that? Was your God forced to do this? Because otherwise life would not have been possible. That's a very weird scenario for a Christian to believe, because it would suggest that the laws of physics overrule your God and that your God needs to adapt to nature. That is something that is almost impossible for Christians to believe. So that means that your argument would crash again. And since, again, that would be kind of pitiful, let's assume that we solve this by assuming that you believe that your God created nature, including these physical constants. So your God is the one ruling over these physical constants. Your God is in charge again. But if that is the case, we run yet into another problem. Because if you imagine that there is a God who is all-powerful and who created everything, including these physical constants of the universe, then how does it make sense for him to first design a complex system of physical constants that only permit life in a very specific range of values that he then has to adjust himself to fit within the limiting ranges that he just imposed upon himself? In such a scenario, your God is busy creating problems that he then has to fix himself. And since Christians imagine that their God is all-knowing, this God already knew in advance that this problem would occur. So why would this God create problems for himself that he already knew about in advance, that he would have to fix himself? It doesn't make any sense. Note that we're just at the tip of the iceberg here, of all the problems that are intrinsic to the concept of fine-tuning. In order for you to explain the idea of fine-tuning, you now first have to imagine that the physical constants of the universe are actually variables that can be adjusted. And then you have to imagine that if there is a God, this God is either overruled by the laws of nature, or this God likes to create little problems for himself that he then has to fix again. And all of that was already foreseen by him. Again, the concept of fine-tuning is asking people to do some pretty spectacular mental gymnastics. But you know what? Let's pretend as if we're not capable of doing any critical thinking. And let's close our eyes to all these flaws and failures of your argument and just pretend that your argument is still in the race. Take it away, Trent.
According to the fine-tuning argument, the odds the universe's laws of physics would be life permitting are almost zero. They're like the odds of winning 10 games of poker in a row, all with royal flushes. If you suspect design in the case of that winning streak, then you should suspect a similar design in the far more improbable laws that govern our universe.
Oh no, Trent, that's just 15 more seconds into your explanation. And again, there is another huge problem. As so many Christians do, you try to validate the fine-tuning concept by comparing it to playing a game of poker and getting dealt a royal flush 10 times in a row. And in case of such a poker game, of course, it would be reasonable to think that the game is manipulated, so the universe must be manipulated as well, which, of course, is nonsense. Note that you don't use the poker game merely as an analogy to clarify the argument. No, the comparison to a game of poker is an intrinsic part of the argument. You suggest that when it comes to reasoning, life-permitting laws of physics and a winning streak of 10 royal flushes are kind of equals when it comes to chance, and if we suspect design in the winning streak of 10 royal flushes, then we should also suspect a similar kind of design in the laws of physics. This is exactly the point that convinces so many people, who I think don't do enough critical thinking regarding this argument. This is the part that fools so many folks on an intuitive level. But this part of the argument totally falls apart under real scrutiny. Look, here's the problem. Yes, it seems reasonable to suggest that in a poker game, a winning streak of 10 royal flushes is designed. But that is because before we even start playing poker, we know in advance that a game exists and that we're playing it. We know in advance that someone designed rules for this game and that someone has designed a purpose to this game. And after all of that, we can deal the cards and assess if there is some kind of remarkable winning situation that was unlikely to have happened by chance and therefore needs an explanation. These are all necessary conditions for concluding that the game must be manipulated. But with the universe, none of that applies. We don't even know if games exist on a universe level. We don't know if there are rules and if there is a purpose to the universe. We don't know if and how the physical constants came to be. With the universe, all we have is an observable phenomenon, being life-permitting laws of physics. But was that a winning streak, like a royal flush, that requires an explanation? We have no idea if that is the case, because we don't know if someone designed a purpose to the universe. The whole point of your argument was to prove that, not to imagine it. So if we don't know if the universe has a purpose, then we have no idea if life-permitting laws of nature are a winning streak that needs an explanation. Based upon the information we have, life-permitting laws of nature are just a phenomenon, of which we cannot determine if it has any winning or purposeful qualities relative to other outcomes that we could imagine. In fact, if we were to assume that the universe was designed, it seems to be designed to host empty space. The vast majority of the universe consists of empty space, so if there is a designer, he perhaps loves empty space. Or perhaps he loves hydrogen, because there's an awful lot of that as well in the universe. But would we suspect life to be the purpose of the universe, if there was a purpose at all? No, not really. Why? There is very, very little life in the universe. Life is such an insignificant phenomenon to the universe, and it's only possible in such an extraordinary small part of the universe, that if this universe were to be designed, it rather looks like the designer tried to rule out life, and he almost succeeded. If you insist that the universe was designed, then how would you distinguish between it being designed to permit life, but it almost failed, or it was designed to rule out life, and it almost succeeded? The current universe could be both. But of course, it's worse, because we're still not at a point where design even is a viable option. We're still at the very start of the argument. So going back to the poker game analogy, no, that's a totally invalid comparison, because we don't know if the universe is part of some game with rules and with purposes. If we now make an honest comparison between the life-permitting laws of nature and a hand of cards, it would be like this. Imagine someone deals you a hand of cards, and either these cards are all red, or they're all black cards, or they're all odd numbers, or all even numbers, or only one of them is a king, or none of them is an ace, or we can't find any special pattern in this hand of cards. And if we don't know if we're playing a game here, and if we have no way to assess if this hand of cards indicates any kind of winning or purposeful qualities, for all we know, it's just a random hand of cards. Now, would you suspect design or manipulation in this hand of cards? No, of course you won't, because you have no purpose to compare it to, and design cannot exist without purpose. But with a life-permitting universe, it's exactly the same. If we don't know if life is the purpose, there is not any reason to suspect manipulation or design. Why would we? Design cannot exist without purpose. Oops, that's a big bummer. Is there any way left to save your argument? I don't think so. You could try. Maybe appeal to big numbers. Oh, the odds of life-permitting laws of nature are 1 in trillions upon trillions upon trillions. No, you don't know that, because there is no way for you to assess if the physical constants of the universe could have had any other values. So you cannot make any kind of probability claim. We already dealt with that. And even if you could establish that there could have been 1 trillion different outcomes of physical constants of the universe, then without there being a purpose to the universe, the current physical constants are just a random outcome. That is just as likely as any other outcome, which would make chance an excellent explanation for a life-permitting universe. So the argument basically fails on all conceivable levels. I think the basic reason why some people are impressed by this argument is because they overlook the purpose problem. We human beings so badly want to be important. There just must be a purpose to the universe, and that purpose must have been to create us. So many people so badly want to believe that. So many people just want to believe that the universe finds them special and that the universe revolves around them. Most religions just exploit that weakness of the human mind. And because of this blind desire to be meaningful and purposeful, people imagine that life must be the purpose of the universe in order to make an argument work that was supposed to prove that there is purpose to the universe. It is circular reasoning, and it keeps amazing me why so many people do not see that. It's time to bury the fine-tuning argument, because proper scrutiny reduces it to meaningless word salad. Thanks for watching.